Hey, I'm Joe Hamilton, and you're watching My Mayor exclusively on the St. Pete Catalyst. With our new series, My Mayor, we're spending some quality time one-on-one with each of the candidates to get to know the person behind the policy. We'll record every other Wednesday and then release it the next day on Thursday. Our format will be to spend a few minutes catching up with the candidate on how the campaign's going, and then ask the same one question to each candidate with giving them ample time to answer in depth. Our goal is, as you spend the coming weeks getting to know these candidates through these deeper answers, that you'll be able to make the right decision for you as to who should be our next leader. We'll invite you to continue the conversation on the Catalyst platform through the comments, with a reminder that we actually moderate our comments so that you can share your perspectives and your insight without fear of being hijacked by trolls or negativity. We're back with My Mayor episode 2. Joining me is candidate Ken Welch. Hi, Ken. How are you?
I'm doing well. Great to be with you today.
Thanks for joining us. How's life on the campaign trail?
Life is great. We've had a great March, both in fundraising and in bringing in new volunteers to support the campaign. We're excited to be rolling out a new website this month. And also, now that we're making progress with COVID and the vaccines, we feel we can now start safely doing some canvassing. So on April 17th, that'll be our first canvassing in the city, and we're having a kickoff on April 12th, virtual kickoff for all of our volunteers. So if you'd like to sign up, go to kenwelch.com, scroll down, click on volunteer, and give us your information. We're also very excited to add Vito Shealy, a veteran political staffer with Congressman Christ and Castor and the Christman campaign and the Biden campaign. Happy to have Vito on my team. And Vito also was on my team in 2012 as well to do community outreach. He'll be our outreach director for the campaign. So we're excited to have Vito on board and looking forward to starting the conversation with the community.
That's great. Thank you. So today, our question, we're getting to know you through the people who influence you. So we're looking for 3 people who influence you, one in your immediate life, one out in the world that's living that you may or may not even have met, and then somebody from history. So let's start with person number 1 in your immediate life.
Joe, this was really tough. Thank you all for having us go through this mental exercise. So in my immediate life, I'm going to say my parents and grandparents. I know that's more than one, but they always work together. And the values, of course, of my parents came from their parents. And so when I think about my mom and dad, they emphasize education, faith, hard work. And my grandparents, to me, they were the vision of perseverance. And they taught me that, your personal dignity and integrity isn't determined by outside forces. It's determined by you working within your God-given purpose. I know that they face challenges that I will never face. My granddad only had a 3rd grade education, yet he had a wood yard that was at the gas plant. But I watched him work there sun up to sundown, come home, give all the money to my grandmother, all right? And they lived within their means and were able to put all 4 of their children through college. And all 4 of those children, including my dad, became educators in the Pinellas County school system. And so I just pull so much inspiration from both my parents and my grandparents. So that would be immediate life.
That's great. And when you think back to your rich history, obviously now the world is evolving at a very, very quick pace with technology. What are some of the things that strike you that we were working on then that we're still working on now that haven't kept up with the pace of change of a lot of other areas in our life?
So many things. One of the things I've been contemplating is how much planning we do. We plan, and don't implement. And so I pulled up a document from the 90s when my father was in his 3rd term, I believe, on city council. And there was a PSTA planning document for the local bus service talking about the need for better frequency, for bus service that connects folks to jobs and housing. And we've been talking about that for decades, and that's just one example. The Tropicana Field issue in itself is a big unfulfilled promise of jobs and economic development that was supposed to come from the gas plant relocation and the acquisition of baseball for our community. That's a huge issue that hasn't been resolved, promises that haven't been kept, and I'm very hopeful that we're going to bring those promises to fruition in the near term.
That's a good point. Let's move on to person number 2, someone in the world that you may or may not have met that's living.
So this one, you said a person that you met briefly. So I'm going to take a little bit of liberty and say Representative John Lewis, who passed away recently, but I did get to meet him at the Palladium. He was coming down for a series, magnificent speaker, and I got to meet him backstage, and I just was so impressed by the humility, the humbleness of this giant in American politics and civil rights. And yes, we got a photo together, but he was just so welcoming, and I see that trait among folks like Leon Jackson of the Courageous 12. These are giants, and yet when you approach them, they have such a self-awareness of basic humanity and connecting with you as a person. That always leaves an impression on me, us remembering that human connection and how we all have so much more in common than the things that divide us.
And when looking at the people that you mentioned, there are pioneers in equity, and something we're still struggling with. What are your day-to-day strategies in our current year to help us, and how would you help your constituents really focus on the things that bind us?
I think you meet people where they are. You don't walk in with a prejudiced thought of what another person's motive is. If you actually sit down and listen to the other person, you'll find out that we have so much more in common. I think we talked before. One of the things I did in preparing for this in 18 to 19 is I did 1,000 Uber and Lyft rides. You've got no choice about what part of the city you're going to when that call comes in, what neighborhood you're going to. And I can tell you, I can count on one hand the bad rides that I had. Folks are overwhelmingly good at heart, but you can't let that physical appearance, I mean, whether the person is tattooed or looks like a young person with pants hanging down, or no matter what they look like that's not normal for you, get past that. Just say hello, say what's on your mind, what are your challenges today in this neighborhood, what are the challenges that you face in your neighborhood, and listen, and then work with them to make it better. That's how we, I think, eliminate most of these barriers. That's the way we worked on the county commission when I served there for 20 years, serving all parts of this county. Walk in with an open mind, be prepared to listen, and be prepared to have a conversation instead of just a monologue.
Thank you. Someone from history, person number 3, who's influenced you?
Okay, so this person was a rebel who spoke truth to power. He challenged the status quo, the gatekeepers of his day. He was an advocate for the sick, for the homeless, for widowers, for fatherless children, for ex-offenders. He believed in second chances, and a lot of folks called him a radical. He also believed in the redeeming power of love. In fact, he said the greatest commandment of all is that we love one another. And so that's Jesus Christ.
Which begs the question: when your term is up, should you be elected, what will people look back on and say you were a rebel about?
I think they'd say I focused on innovation. I focused on new ways of addressing old problems. I think the CRA in South St. Pete was something that had never been done in our county, and it was in policy that we wouldn't create a CRA with county funding if it wasn't in a downtown. And so working with the community, working with Carl Nurse as a city council person, working with several mayors, Mayor Foster and Mayor Chryson subsequently, and the community, we changed that paradigm. And so just because it's never been done doesn't mean we shouldn't look at it. And especially when we're looking at things, whether it's the housing issue, whether it's how we continue to grow smartly when so much of our city is in a coastal high hazard area. When we talk about the investment we need to make for our infrastructure, when we talk about the issues we're seeing with public safety in parts of our cities where we're on a path to break the record for murders. We've got to have innovative ways of reaching people who we haven't reached before, of dealing with problems that we haven't had to deal with before. And I think the way you do that is, in some cases, breaking the mold. In some cases, saying to the institutions and the models that, look, we're going to look at doing something new. It might have some risk inherent, but we can't solve new problems in many cases with a broken old model.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Candidate for Mayor Ken Welch, thanks for joining us again, and we'll see you on the next episode of My Mayor.
Looking forward to it. Have a great one.